So 6 months after those floods in KwaZulu-Natal, about 80 people who were affected have still not found a proper and dignified place to live. The group is currently sheltering at a rundown building in Durban after being moved to various shelters since the April floods. Newsroom's Karinda Jagmohan is tracking the story, joins us now, I beg your pardon, for an update. Karinda, give us a better idea of the living conditions of these people in that rundown building.
Well, at the moment, residents here don't know when their next meal is going to come from. Currently, there are some officials that are arranging private donors to bring them food, but still, there's no access to hot water as well. We've seen residents even have to carry large buckets of water to come through and bathe themselves, carrying water from this stream you see, this tub that you're seeing here. And that has been the situation for these residents for the past 5 months. They've been moved from various shelters. Initially, their homes were in Umlazi. These were destroyed by the April floods. And from then on, the eThekwini municipality marked them as the group of displaced flood victims. There are various groups across the city, of course. And they were initially housed in a community hall. This had poor living conditions. They were then moved to a hostel, but there were also issues there of overcrowding and undignified living. Ultimately, and eventually, after moving around various accommodations in the city, this group were moved to this house. Now, my colleague spoke in Kubande, and I will show you one of the areas here. At this point, some of the ladies were still getting ready right now, because from this morning, they're still trying to understand and fathom their living situation and even how they're going to feed the little children that are here. So we're going to come through. At this point, they're still just getting ready now, but we're going to be showing you some of the areas where the residents have experienced this issue. What is standing out here at this point is that they say they've been left in the dark by the eThekwini municipality, that they've not actually been told when they'll get proper housing. The municipality has been speaking about temporary residential units, but there's still many community halls where there are groups of displaced flood victims that are living there waiting for some kind of dignified housing. They don't have privacy. They're sleeping on thin sponges on the floor, and often again they don't have access to proper meals. We spoke to some matriculants as well. There are at least 5 matriculants here in this area and living in this building. And one of the girls told us that she has been unable to study for her matric exams over the past 5 months, missing school regularly because she does not have access to get to school. During the floods, she lost her school uniform. She had to deal with the consequences, the immediate aftermath of the floods. And at that point, she just doesn't know what's happening with her schooling, and she fears she might fail her matric year. We're just going to check if the residents are ready for us to come in. My colleague Spungiseni Gobande will show you the living conditions here of some of the residents. This group of women living here, sleeping on, at least they have beds in this room. They have their children here, and unfortunately, the residents living here, they've given us permission to come through and shoot this particular room. They are not living with their family members. The males are forced to sleep on a veranda outside. It's currently raining in Durban because there's a lack of space to accommodate the over 80 people. This is at least one of the better rooms here. Nearby, there are rooms where the walls are cracking. And again, in many cases, some of the kids as well sleeping on thin sponges. This is the plight of displaced flood victims. At the same time, the eThekwini municipality says that they are arranging temporary residential units, and they have been. They say that initially there were just over 100 community halls where flood victims were staying in, and that this has gone down to 52 because people have been moved out. 2 temporary residential units, but the core issue here is that there are still people that are living in undignified conditions. The municipality says they want to move everyone out of the community halls by the end of Christmas, but this is just another issue that they've had. Earlier on Sunday, a group of flood victims who were in Reservoir Hills were barred from moving into a former student residence block because of a number of issues, and they are currently staying at a hotel where we hear there's also complaints there in terms of poor living conditions and some people having to stay outside of that hotel because a lack of space. We have posed questions to the municipality about the vetting process when it comes to buildings. You'll see this woman here having to collect water to take into the room because there's just not proper access to any kind of facilities in this particular building. We're waiting for the municipality to respond, especially on how they're actually vetting various buildings. Disaster management teams are currently here. They came about an hour ago to try and intervene. At the same time, these residents say they're left in the dark of where they'll go next and when they'll actually get a proper shelter to live in.
Jagmohan, thank you very much for that update from Durban.